You know what nobody tells you about Social Security? The best claiming strategy often involves more than just getting the most money. And I know that sounds crazy because every calculator, every article, every advisor out there is obsessed with maximizing your benefit. But here's the truth: the strategy that makes you the richest on paper is really the strategy that makes you the happiest in retirement. And today I'm going to show you the Social Security approach that actually leads to a better life, not just a bigger number. Hi, I'm Scott O'Connell with Tactical Investment Advisors. I've spent years helping retirees navigate this exact decision. What I have learned is that the math matters, but the math is not everything. Most people optimize for the wrong thing entirely. By the end of this video, you're going to understand three things. First, why maximizing Social Security can actually make your retirement worse. Second, the hidden cost of waiting until 70 that nobody talks about. And third, a framework for making this decision based on what actually matters to you. Here is one of the most common misconceptions in Social Security planning: waiting until 70 is always the smart move. You've heard this 1,000 times. Delay your benefit, and your benefit increases by roughly 8% per year you delay, based on current rules. Maximize your lifetime income. Sounds like a no-brainer, right? But that advice assumes you are a spreadsheet. It assumes the only thing that matters is total dollars collected over your lifetime. It completely ignores what those dollars are worth to you and when you actually get to use them. Let me show you exactly what I mean with real numbers. Say you are 62 years old and trying to decide when to claim. If you claim at 62, you might get around $1,800 a month. If you wait until 70, that could grow to somewhere around $3,200, depending on your earnings history. The math says wait, but here's what the math ignores. To get that higher benefit, you have to fund 8 years of retirement without Social Security. That means pulling potentially $150,000 or more from your portfolio, depending on your expenses. Money that is no longer growing, money that is no longer compounding, money that is exposed to sequence of returns risk during the most vulnerable years of your retirement. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Based on current actuarial estimates, the average 65-year-old man can expect to live into his mid-80s and the average woman into her mid to late 80s. So you are betting 8 years of your healthiest, most active retirement on the chance that you will live long enough to break even. For most people, that break-even age is somewhere around 80 to 83, which means some retirees who delay may not come out ahead financially, depending on longevity and household factors. In some cases, retirees may give up years of income they could have used for benefits they may never fully realize. Now you might be thinking, what about longevity? What if I live to 95? Fair concern. But let me ask you something that changes how most people think about this. At 95, what are you going to do with that extra money? At 65, you can hike national parks, you can travel internationally, you can spoil your grandkids, you can renovate your house. At 95, you're trying to remember your medications. Your money is worth more to you now than it will be then, not just financially, personally. This is exactly why I help clients at Tactical Investment Advisors think through this decision differently. Because the best Social Security strategy is not about maximizing income. It's about maximizing life. If you want help figuring out what that looks like for your specific situation, book a time with me. The link is in the description below. So what should you actually optimize for? Here's the framework I use with clients, and it comes down to 3 questions most advisors never ask. Question number 1, what do I want my early retirement to look like? If you have big plans for your 60s, travel, hobbies, helping family, active adventures, then having income earlier matters more than having more income later. Question 2, what is my health reality? Not your hope, your reality. Family history, current conditions, lifestyle factors. Be honest with yourself here. If your parents passed in their 70s, planning for 95 might not make sense for you. Question 3, what gives me peace of mind? Some people sleep better knowing they have a guaranteed check coming in now. Others, well, they feel better knowing they maximize the math. Neither answer is wrong, but only one is right for you. So let me show you how this plays out in the real world. I worked with a couple, let us call them David and Karen. David was 65, Karen was 61. They had about $1.2 million saved. Every advisor they talked to said the same thing. David should wait till 70 to claim. Karen should wait as long as possible to maximize her own benefit, and then coordinate from there. Maximize optimization, textbook advice. But when we sat down and actually talked about their lives, a completely different picture emerged. David had spent 35 years in a physically demanding job, so his knees were shot. His back was failing. Karen had always dreamed of traveling while they were both still healthy enough to enjoy it. Their parents had all passed before 80, so we ran a different scenario. What if David claimed at 63 and Karen claimed at 62? Yes, their monthly checks would be smaller, but suddenly they had income covering most of their basic expenses right now. They could travel without guilt, and they could let their portfolio recover from market dips without panic selling. They could actually live the retirement they had spent 35 years working for. 2 years later, David sent me an an email that I still think about. He said, Scott, we just got back from a month in Portugal. If we had waited until 70, I do not think my knees could have handled it. That trip would have been impossible. That is what I mean by dying happier, not dying with the most money, dying with the most memories. Now, I want to be clear about something important. This is not a one-size-fits-all advice. For some people, delaying absolutely makes sense. If you are in excellent health with longevity in your family, you have a pension covering your expenses. If you genuinely do not need the money early, waiting can be the right call. But here is what frustrates me about this industry. The financial world acts like waiting is always right and claiming early is always a mistake. That is not planning, that is dogma. Real planning means looking at your specific situation, your health, your goals, your portfolio, your values, and making a decision that serves your life, not just your spreadsheet. Here's another piece that could save your retirement, and most people completely miss it. Social Security is not just a retirement decision. It is a risk management tool. When you claim earlier, you reduce the amount you need to pull from your portfolio in your early 60s. That matters because sequence of returns risk, the danger that a market crash early in retirement devastates your plan, is highest in those first 5 to 10 years. Think about this. If the market drops 30% the year after you retire, and you are pulling a significant amount each year to cover expenses while waiting for Social Security, you can permanently damage your portfolio. The portfolio may struggle to fully recover depending on the sequence of returns. But if Social Security is already covering a substantial portion of your expenses, you need to pull less from your investments during the downtime. That flexibility can be the difference between a recovery and a disaster. At the end of the day, here's what you need to remember. The Social Security decision is not a math problem, it is a life problem. The calculators will tell you to wait, the articles will tell you to wait, but those calculators do not know about your needs. They do not know about your bucket list, and they do not know that your spouse has always wanted to see the northern lights while she can still stand outside in the cold. The best Social Security strategy is the one that helps you live your best retirement, not the one that squeezes out the most theoretical dollars. This is one of the most important decisions you will make in retirement, and it deserves more than a calculator. It deserves a real conversation about your life, your health, and your goals. If you want to sit down and figure out what claiming strategy actually makes sense for you, book a time with me. See you on the next video.